Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football upset alert here this week, where I go through all my top upsets and also talk about some of my parlays that I really like, beginning with Oklahoma traveling to Kansas. This is the big noon game. And I do have to say, when it comes to Oklahoma, I'm still going to keep this a close game, but in their game against UCF, I was looking back on it, and I did an analytical deep dive, and Oklahoma had some really unfortunate luck in that game. They were in the red zone several times. They didn't score. They had a lot more scoring opportunities. They probably should have won that game by 2 touchdowns, so I will say that, but I'll also say that this Kansas team at home, it's going to be a good environment. It is very unfortunate for them. They caught a really bad break with the whole big noon crap. You know, there's an 11 a.m. Central start time. Kansas is like a fringe top 25 team taking on an undefeated team ranked inside of the top 10. You would figure they would get a nice 3:30 game. If this game was at 3:30, I think Kansas would be in a lot better spot. But either way, I will take this game to be very close. Oklahoma winning it, but only by 3 because Kansas is at home. Although, let's be honest, Kansas, the situation with the quarterbacks and the injuries, it is very hard to predict. Either way, their backup, whose name I believe is Jason Bean, he's actually pretty decent. He played a lot last year as well, so even if he does play, I still do like them to cover in this game. Oklahoma, my main problem with them, they have basically no running game. It's an issue, and also, they don't have a true number 1 receiver. You combine those two things, it turns into a bit of a suspect offense, even with Dillon Gabriel, and how much I love him as a great veteran presence, it could possibly be a problem. The next game is BYU at Texas. You do have Texas sitting minus 18.5, very likely starting, or they are starting Malik Murphy with Quinn Ewers out. I will take BYU to cover in this game. I don't know why Texas is sitting minus 18.5. It seems like it's an analytical glitch almost at this point because they were around minus 22 on the road in Houston. That was with Quinn Ewers, and I said there's no way they cover it. They almost lost that game outright. It probably would have went to overtime if the spot would have been called correctly, and Houston possibly could have went for 2, maybe even the win. So I just think the analytics right now are far too high on Texas, and we know that Vegas uses their own analytical models to set the overall spreads, and I just think it's juiced way too much, especially with a backup quarterback. The other thing is people are expecting Murphy to come in and be almost like as good as Quinn Ewers. Now, maybe that happens, but I'm not going to bank on a backup quarterback. I don't care about his pedigree. There's no way I'm going to, not take the value in BYU, a team that can score on offense, keeping this game close going on the road. And I will say it is a nice little wrinkle to have these games. These are basically non-conference games. Like, I know they're conference, but it's fun to have these matchups this late in the year. This is the weird scheduling quirk where these teams are joining the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are about to leave the Big 12, but this year they're all together and they're all playing each other. The next game is Oregon at Utah, so should Oregon be on upset alert? I don't see it personally. I think Utah, they get a gritty, hard win. They understand, Bo Nix understands, with all of his starts, with all of his experience, they're not going to let this terrible Utah offense destroy their season. Now, I don't have a ton of confidence in Oregon covering, but if you want a moneyline parlay Oregon, there is no way they will let Utah ruin their season with Bryson Barnes and that bad offense. It's just not happening. I will take Oregon to win this game on the road. Yes, Utah has a really good defense. Yes, they feed off the home energy, but we know the situation that Oregon is in. They already have 1 loss. They can still salvage it. If they win out, they're going to make the playoff because there'll be a 1-loss team that wins the Pac-12. They're going to win that game, in my opinion. Next, we do have Tulane traveling to Rice. This is just one of those games where I see a straight-up upset. I do like Rice winning it outright with JT Daniels, the offensive upside, all the passing yards. They do have a potent offense, and you take a look at this Tulane team. They struggled a little bit last week against North Texas. I see that continuing, and I see Rice possibly being able to pull off, a sizable upset, sitting minus 11.5. Tulane is minus 11.5, but really only a 67% chance to win, so it's not that crazy of an upset, especially since it is at Rice. Next, we do have Tennessee traveling to Kentucky. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I do have Kentucky winning this game outright. I see these teams very similarly. I don't see Tennessee having an elite offense at all. They're not explosive. They rely on the run game. And when you're on the road in a hostile environment, that can be a problem. You need explosive plays. It's very hard to string together, 10-play, 12-play drives back to back to back. You stall for field goals. I will take Kentucky at home with the crowd. Personally, I just think these teams are evenly matched, and if you're going to give me 3.5 points for the home team as an underdog, I will take it for sure. Next, we do have a 7:30 game, Ohio State traveling to Wisconsin. So I am expecting this to be a lower scoring game. Ohio State should still win it, obviously. Wisconsin starting their backup QB. They can kind of run the ball, but I mean, I would be surprised if Wisconsin threw for over like 170 yards just because of how good Ohio State secondary is. And then Ohio State, it's just not going to be pretty. The offense this year with Kyle McCord, especially going on the road at night in a hostile environment, all Wisconsin is going to be doing is blitzing, blitzing, blitzing. That's exactly what they should do against a young quarterback who's making one of his first, really big road starts outside of the Notre Dame game. And even the Notre Dame game, Ohio State's offense really didn't do much. So the other problem with Ohio State, they really can't run the ball. Their run blocking is really bad. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I like the under. Only 41 degrees, the game time temperature, so it's going to be colder, and that's going to play into the whole under idea. And then we are going to take a look at some of my favorite parlays. So you can see BYU plus the 18.5. I talked about that on the road in Austin, Texas. We're taking the under 40. Michigan State at Minnesota. That was one of my best bets. When it comes to a game like this where it's in the 30s, it's an 11 a.m. Central start time. Both of these teams horrifically bad on offense. I could see a very low-scoring game. UCF on the money line versus West Virginia. So West Virginia is still due for more losses. They're really not as good as their record. UCF, solid team, especially with their starting quarterback. I am taking Oregon. Again, I like them money line at Utah. And then Georgia, money line at Florida. That's kind of standard, minus 625 there. That parlay is plus 748. The next one, it is Air Force on the money line at Colorado State. So Air Force still trying to remain undefeated. We would expect them to win. USC money line at Cal. I just can't see USC losing this game. I know they've struggled. They've lost several games in a row, but they are sitting like minus 11 in this game. They're not gonna finish with 5 losses. Come on, let's be honest. Next, you do have Kentucky on the money line versus Tennessee. And then we are taking the under in the Ohio State-Wisconsin. That's been bet up to 45, I guess because of the value of, an Ohio State game over-under at 43. So it got bet up, but I am taking the under there. The next one, it is Georgia Tech not on the money line, plus the 11.5 versus North Carolina. So yeah, I like Georgia Tech possibly to win that game outright, but they should cover very easily, plus the 11.5. Pittsburgh plus the 20.5 at Notre Dame. Going to be a very cold game there as well. I will take Pitt with the value. Surprisingly close game. That should be a surprisingly close game. UMass at Army. That's a noon start time, under 48. You do have a triple option team facing just a terrible team in UMass. The over 56.5 in Oregon State at Arizona. So I'm very surprised that the over-under in that game is only 56.5. And then this final one, this is an auto lock. Yeah, this is minus 117, so it's almost even money. Imagine this. Washington, basically guaranteed to win. James Madison. I could actually see James Madison getting upset by Old Dominion. I just threw this together kind of as a troll thing for fun. But yeah, that would be, imagine investing your life savings into that and somebody loses. And then just taking a look at some weather games that piqued my interest. I don't know, man. These two 11 a.m. Central start times, if this is legitimate, 41 degrees in that Kansas game with rain, around a 72% chance of rain, and then 38 to 39 degrees Kansas State. Yeah, the jet stream is dipping down over Kansas, and that's going to enable us to really get great value on the under in both of these games. You've got a Houston team, warm weather, Kansas State defensive-minded team. The over-under very juiced up to 58.5. I think there's value on the under, and then possibly value on Oklahoma, Kansas, the under 65.5. That's a big number for a game that's possibly going to be dealing with some cold rain in terms of that. And then look at this. We've got some snow in the forecast. I wonder if this will actually happen. 7 o'clock game, which is really 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Colorado State at home. 28 degrees, around an 80% chance of snow. Under 47.5 looks like a lock in that Air Force Colorado State game. They're going to want to keep it low scoring, keep the ball on the ground, and then that Ohio State-Wisconsin game, we're also looking at possibly some light showers, 42 degrees. That could benefit Wisconsin depending on what happens there. But there's going to be a lot of colder games this weekend, and especially next weekend. We might even get more snow next weekend. We're going to be dealing with temperatures in the 20s throughout much of the Northeast. That's next weekend. Right now, it's actually pretty warm in the Northeast. But either way, guys, those are just some interesting weather games. That is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.